Daniel Hayes had spent his whole life trying to disappear. He had grown up in a town that had nothing to offer but dead-end jobs, broken-down houses, and the kind of people who drank their problems away before noon. His father was one of them, a bitter, violent man whose fists spoke louder than his words. Daniel learned early that no one was coming to save him. By the time he was 18, he had a record, a reputation, and no future. He had spent his childhood learning to fight, learning to steal, learning to survive. When he wasn't getting into brawls behind gas stations, he was sleeping in his truck to avoid going home. Then, one day, after another fight, another close call with the cops, he made a choice. He walked into a recruitment office. "Why do you want to enlist?" the recruiter asked, eyeing the bruises on his knuckles. Daniel had stared at the man and told him the truth. "I got nowhere else to go." The first thing the military took from him was his name. "Private Hayes!" The drill instructor's voice was a thunderclap, shaking through Daniel's bones. Basic training was hell. Early mornings, grueling workouts, barking orders he wasn't allowed to question. But for the first time in his life, the pain had a purpose. The military didn't care about where he came from, who his father was, or how many fights he had won in back alleys. All that mattered was whether he could stand up when he was knocked down. For the first few weeks, he almost quit. Almost. But something changed when he started looking out for the guy next to him. When a fellow recruit collapsed from exhaustion, Daniel pulled him up. When one of the quieter guys got chewed out by a sergeant, Daniel took the heat for him. And for the first time in his life, he belonged somewhere. He wasn't just running anymore. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. The desert heat was unrelenting. Daniel's first deployment sent him straight into the kind of chaos he wasn't prepared for. The first time he saw a man die, it didn't happen the way it did in the movies. There was no dramatic last speech, no slow-motion fall. 1 second, the guy was cracking a joke about wanting a beer. The next, his body was twisted in a way it wasn't meant to be, and his blood was soaking into the sand. Daniel wanted to throw up, wanted to run. But war didn't give you a choice. He adapted. He had to. The longer he stayed, the more he changed. The kid who enlisted because he had nothing else, that kid was gone. Now, he was a soldier. It happened 6 months in. A routine patrol turned into an ambush, IED explosion, chaos, screams, gunfire. When the dust settled, Daniel was bleeding, disoriented, but alive. Then he saw her. A little girl, no older than 6, caught in the wreckage. She was trapped beneath rubble, her tiny hands reaching out. She wasn't crying, wasn't even screaming, just staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran toward her. "Hayes, fall back!" his sergeant yelled. But he didn't. He pulled the girl free, scooping her into his arms, shielding her from the chaos. Then he heard the shot. One of his men. Down. Daniel turned just in time to see his friend hit the ground. Because of him. Because he had stayed behind. Because he had chosen to save her instead. The girl lived. His friend didn't. And Daniel? He never forgave himself. After 2 deployments, Daniel came back to the same town he had once tried so hard to leave. But now, it felt alien. The old bar stools were still there. The same clerk still worked the gas station. His father was still drunk, still angry. But Daniel had changed. The first time someone asked him, "So, did you kill anybody?" he almost punched them. The first time he woke up in the middle of the night, sweating, reaching for a rifle that wasn't there, he almost broke down. This wasn't his home. He didn't belong anywhere. Until he saw the kid. Daniel had been passing through town when he spotted the boy sitting alone on a curb. The kid couldn't have been older than 10, bruises on his arms, dirty clothes. Daniel knew that look, knew exactly what kind of life he was trying to survive. He stopped. "Hey," he called. "You okay?" The kid flinched, then nodded too fast. Daniel sighed. "Yeah, I used to say that too." For a long moment, the boy didn't speak. Then, in a quiet voice, he asked, "Does it get better?" Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. "Yeah," he said, "but not if you stay here." The kid hesitated before finally looking up at him. "So, where do I go?" Daniel had no idea why he said what he did next, but the words came anyway. "You come with me." Daniel never expected to find a purpose again, but somehow, taking in that kid, Leo, felt like making amends for all the things he couldn't fix. He got involved in veteran outreach, started working with kids like him, ones who needed someone to believe in them. One day at a charity event, he saw her, the little girl from the ambush. She was older now, standing with her adoptive parents, alive, happy. She saw him, and for a brief second, she smiled. And Daniel realized something. He had spent years hating himself for the choices he made. But today he saved a kid again. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Daniel had spent his whole life running, first from his father, then from his past. But war didn't just take from him. It made him a fighter. And this time, he wasn't fighting to survive. He was fighting for something worth saving. Some men enlist to serve their country. Some enlist to escape. But war changes them all. And some in ways they never expected.